Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode where we speak to a contestant of a game show and find out some behind the scenes action. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what game show you were on?
Sure. My name is Christian Carrion, and in 2007, I was a contestant on The Price is Right for my 18th birthday.
Oh, wow. So was it, did you go on specially for your 18th birthday, or did the show plan it to
Well, I had been a fan of this show my entire life. I grew up watching game shows, and The Price is Right is one of those shows that was always present in my life, and
yeah.
it had been around for as long as I'd been around. And the host, Bob Barker, announced the previous year that this season was going to be his last. He was retiring after a total of 50 years in television.
Wow.
And it had coincided with the fact that I turned 18 during his last season. You have to be 18 or older to be on the
Yeah.
show. And so I knew what I wanted for my birthday right at that moment. Just get me the airfare to California. I know everything else. I know how to get the tickets, where to wait, what to do. I'll take care of it from there. Just help me get there. And my parents, I was fortunate enough that my parents were able to do that. And this was in May of 2007. So the trip had been planned for quite a while, and it was really with the goal of just seeing this guy who I've been watching on TV my entire life, seeing him in person just once before he retires.
Wow. That'd be a great 18th birthday present. That's amazing. So when you applied to be on the show, did you tell them this plan that you'd love the show and everything, and it was for your 18th?
Well, I did tell them that, but they didn't really need to know why I was there.
Hmm.
The line for the show is typically about 400 people long. They let the first 300 people into the studio, and the other ones are what they call in standby. So if somebody eats a bad sandwich in line and gets sick, they can call one of these standby people in to take their place in the audience. Now,
Hmm.
because of the media fervor surrounding Bob Barker's retirement, the line that was typically around 400 people was something closer to 3,000. It stretched
Wow.
all across Los Angeles, and I was first in line because the show took place on a Tuesday. I got there on a Saturday afternoon, and I sat in front of the gate for security at the network, and that's where I was for over 3 days. So
Wow.
by the time I had gone in and talked to the producers, they knew that there was this one guy who was in line for 3 days. So they kind of knew who I was already. I was fortunate to have that little notable fact about myself going in.
That is incredible. So, did you have like a little tent? Did you have like rations? What? Let's talk about your setup for staying in line.
Yes, well, this setup should be a lesson in how to be completely unprepared for something like this. So I arrived in Los Angeles. I had a backpack on my back, so I had with me one change of clothes. I had a T-shirt that my dad drew Bob Barker on for me that I was going to wear on the show. I had an extra pair of shorts, and I had a Game Boy with Tetris. And that's all I brought with me. And I had, my wallet and things like that. But um, eh, sitting there for the first day, because nobody had joined me at that point, sitting there for the first day made me realize I needed a lot more than this. I was very fortunate that somebody living in an apartment building next to the studio. Um, oh, excuse me for 1 second. Excuse me. I have a little bit of cold, so bear with me if you don't
Oh,
mind.
no, yeah, no problem.
I was fortunate enough that somebody living next to the studio in one of the apartment high rises saw me waiting from their window, came down and said, "Hey, you don't have a chair. Would you like a chair?" And they brought me a chair. And another family the following day who got a hotel room, who I eventually became great friends with and bonded over this entire experience, they saw that I didn't have any any rations or anything. And so the following morning, I woke up in my chair, and under my chair was a box. And in that little white box was just all the muffins and sausages and biscuits
Oh,
and everything from the hotel breakfast buffet. They made a little box for me, I left it there. So I really depended upon the kindness of strangers to get myself to a place where I was prepared for this trip. I would have certainly perished if not for these people.
wow. That is some serious dedication. Obviously, how could they not let you on after that? That was wow. So you got there, did you say on the Saturday?
I got there on a Saturday afternoon at about 2:30 p.m. Yes.
And when did the filming begin?
Tuesday at 4:30.
Tuesday at 4:30.
You're right.
Wow. When did the second person in line come after you?
I was there by myself for the first night, and I think by the time I think it had been about 24 hours. So about 2 p.m. the next day, I started meeting people who were coming to get in line.
So that's still pretty early from then. I know you beat them, but that's still quite early. Did you manage to like get a friendship with them? Were you chatting to them for the rest of the time you were queued, or?
I did, and this was honestly, other than the show itself, this was one of the most exciting parts for me. Like I said earlier, I have been watching this kind of TV my entire life. Now, an interest like this is very narrow. There weren't many other game show fans in my
Hmm.
elementary school classes or even, throughout high school. So this to me represented an opportunity to talk about this stuff that I like so much in person, which I was never able to do. This had been a conversation that was strictly online, message boards and chat rooms and things. So to be able to meet people in real life who were into The Price is Right and into game shows as much as I was a transformative experience. And I still keep in touch with a lot of those people that I was in line with.
Wow, it sounds like you've kind of gone through an experience with them. All of this camping out. It sounds quite amazing, really.
It really was. And, for my 18th birthday, it was like a coming of age kind of thing. I felt like I'm not Jewish, but I feel like I became a man that day.
And what did your parents think about it? Were they happy for you to stay out, or they're worried?
Looking back, I am surprised that they weren't more worried. I don't think, other than when I first got to Los Angeles and when I was getting ready to head home, I don't think I kept in touch with them too much. I think that because they knew what I was doing and because I knew that I knew what I was doing, there was
Yeah.
this mutual understanding that this is safer than it would be if he was just going in blindly. I mean, they announce the address to get tickets on every episode, and I have it memorized. I've had it memorized my entire life. So like I knew where I was walking. I knew what I was looking for. And I think that knowledge made my parents feel a lot safer.
I'm not too sure how it works. So do they just let the first 300 in? You don't have to apply to be on the show or anything like that?
Well, part of the process, you go into the show. The first 300 people are the audience. And
Mhm.
as you walk in, there's a contestant coordinator that interviews everybody for maybe 30 seconds.
Mm.
And so everybody is interviewed to be a contestant on the way in. And what they ask you two basic questions. They ask you where you're from and what do you do?
Mm.
And so that's on that basis, that's how they pick the contestants for the show. Nobody knows who like nobody knows if they're going to be a contestant until they hear their name called on the show. So the excitement that you see when people jump out of their seats and run down the aisle, that's all genuine because no one has any clue. I'm sure you've seen some episodes of the show, but the intro is very loud and very energetic, and there's music and there are lights and everybody's applauding, so you can't hear your name as it's being called. So the first four people who get called down to do the show, they have their names on these big white cue cards on stage. So everybody is looking at the stage just to see who's going to be called. And so if they didn't have that card held up, I don't know that I would have heard my name.
So you were one of the very first four as well?
I was the last of the first
The
four.
last of the
Yep.
four. When you were up there behind the podium, how many times did you have to guess before you got onto the game?
That's actually quite funny. I almost didn't make it onto the stage. So there are 6 opportunities total in a show to bid on an item and win your way up on stage. I made it up on the second to last one bid item. So I almost didn't make it.
Yeah, cutting it close there.
Right.
Were you wearing your T-shirt with Bob Barker on at that point that your dad drew?
I
did you say?
was. Yeah, I was. And if you watch the episode, you can barely tell what's on my shirt. But yeah, I was wearing the shirt. It was about 2 sizes too big, but I was able to move around, which was which
That's
turned
the
out to
main
be
thing.
helpful once once the energy took over.
Did Bob mention it, or did he notice it or say anything? Or
The shirt, he did not. No, he did mention the fact that I was out in line for a couple days, and he did mention that I came all the way from Connecticut. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it was a flight clear across the country, about 3,000 miles. So he
How,
mentioned that, and
how
yeah,
long was
he
that
was.
flight?
That was about a 6-hour flight. On the way back, I made a stopover in Phoenix, Arizona, which took
Hmm.
about another 2 hours. But yeah, 6 hours getting there.
Some serious dedication's gone into getting on this show.
Well,
Um,
I'm telling you, the show it's unbelievable the effect that it has on the people who watch it. I remember when I first walked into the studio, and when you first walk in there, the first thing that hits you is how small the set is. Like, you can't believe that this is where they do the show. It's
mm,
it's it's ridiculous how small everything is in person. And when you're done with the show, you leave with this surreal feeling like, did I just do that? Did that just happen? Because everything is larger than life on TV. And I remember I had a reaction that I don't think I've ever had to anything else since. The first thing I did when I got into the studio, and I'm surprised nobody stopped me. The first thing I did was I climbed the steps to the stage, and I found the mark where the host stands, and I just laid out on my back and stretched my arms out and stretched my legs out, and I felt like I was absorbing the energy of that room, because this is 35 years of this show that's taken place on this floor, in this room. And I don't think I've ever felt that type of energy since. It was a complete one-off. And that's the first thing I did was I just laid on the floor and absorbed everything.
wow, it's quite poignant, really, isn't it? Yeah, you don't really realize how long things have been going on and how many people have been in there, and yeah,
Well, I mean, it's the equivalent of somebody who really enjoys American politics getting to, sit at the desk in the Oval Office. Like, there's, that's the upper echelon of that kind of thing. Like, it doesn't really get any more significant than that.
when you get up there on the stage, what game was it you played? I'm not too familiar with all the games, I'm afraid, but what?
Oh, there are about 80, and there are some that
Yeah.
I'm not even familiar with anymore. But the game that I played was called Cover Up. So they give you the price of, it turned out to be a car. And they give you the price. All the numbers are wrong. There's a selection of numbers above each digit in the price. And you reach over and pull one from each column and replace the wrong one, hopefully with the right one. And then once you're done, they let you know how many you have right, and you have an opportunity to change it. And so, yeah, that was the game I played. A relatively newer one. I think they started playing it like in the mid 90s, but it wasn't a huge classic, like some of the other games.
It's incredible. It's incredible what you said there. You said relatively newer game. I think it started in the mid 90s, did you say?
Right. Well, at that point, that was maybe just a little over a decade. But
Yeah.
and the scope of the games that they play on that show, some of the games that they play on that show started way back, like when the show first started in 1972. So it's relatively new by that comparison, I think.
Did you win the game that you played? The
I
when you got on
came
stage?
I came unbelievably close to winning my game. So they showed the price. They said the price of this car, which, by the way, when they showed me the car, I I almost passed out. It's on YouTube. I will send you the link of
Yes,
me
please
on this
do.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely lost my mind. But I knew how to play the game. So they
Yeah.
showed me the price of the car, and the price that they had was wrong.
Right.
So what I had to do was correct the price. And so I forgot that there's this strategy where if you purposely mess up one of the numbers, see, in the game, the idea is that you have to get the right price, but if you get at least one number right, you get an opportunity to do the whole thing again.
Right.
So I forget that there's this strategy where if you mess up one number, you can guarantee yourself a second chance by by doing that. And so I completely forgot it. When you're in the midst of the 300 people screaming at you in the lights, and Bob Barker is standing there with a microphone in front of you, and you're on the set of the damn show, like, you just forget everything. And
Yeah.
so I played the game, and I said, I think this was the price. I put the numbers down, and he said, well, let's see how many he has right, and all of them but one lit up. So
Oh.
the last digit was the one that I had to guess correctly now. So I put myself in the unenviable task of having to guess the price of this car to the dollar. And this is when I went to the audience and I started holding up numbers and see, what they'd say, because you could solicit advice from the audience. They'll scream and none of it makes sense when you hear it there. It's all just garbled screaming and gibberish. But I put down a number that I thought would be it, and it turned out not to be. And the car was a Pontiac Vibe. So a lot of my friends say, by not getting that car, I won.
You can still get onto the final showdown, can't you? Even if you lose, you have to spin the wheel.
That's right. And that was the wheel is probably the most iconic part of the show.
Was the wheel heavy at all?
It was heavier than I thought it was going to be. And, when I first spun it, I didn't think it was going to go all the way around. Like, that's the rule. It has to make one full revolution. I didn't think it was going to go, and I was surprised at how strong I was. It's funny, the side of the wheel that you don't see on TV, there are all these door handles kind of screwed into it, and you could see people's like initials carved in and stuff, and like it's really like not prepared for TV, the part that you don't see, and that's the part where you grab the handle, and spin the thing.
So you didn't manage to get on the final showdown, did you say, from that?
No, I had one of those dramatic spins where I almost got $1. The goal of that game is to get $1 or as close as you can to $1. I was very, very, very close, but I didn't quite make it.
After that point, what happens? Do they lead you off stage? Do you have to sign any forms or?
Yeah, they lead you off and you sit in a section of the audience for the rest of the show. And once the show is done, you go backstage and you sign all your paperwork. So they remind you of what you won and the value of it. Which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that I won a Broyhill sofa. That was the prize that got me on stage.
Oh, nice. I heard, are you allowed to get a cash equivalent prize? Is that...
You used to be able to. I think that on some of the older game shows, because of the rules, there was the possibility that you might win more than one prize. I think that in that situation, you're entitled to the cash equivalent. But I specifically asked if I could have the cash for that, and they said no.
Right. So you got the sofa, did you?
I did get the sofa. It came to my house about 3 months later. Out of nowhere, there was this giant truck in my parking lot, and they came to drop off a sofa.
3 months. You've been sat on the floor for 3 months waiting for this sofa. That's a long time.
It is, isn't it? I mean, my back hurt by the time this goddamn thing got here. But it's funny. The delivery people came, and they didn't know how I got the sofa. They thought I had bought it,
Yeah.
And so they delivered it, and I said, "Hey guys, do you want to see how I got this sofa?" So I played them the video of the show, and I remember one of the delivery drivers saying, "We've delivered to presidents and we've delivered to sports people. I've never delivered to anyone that was on The Price is Right."
Wow, there you go. Claim to fame.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I gotta tell you, the whole experience was just incredible, and the memories of the experience that stay with me the most are the intangibles. You get there and you realize that this is a very old show. Their claim to fame among people who like this kind of show is that they've been using the same props, the same music, the same set since the early 70s. So what you don't hear on TV and that you hear in person are like the creaking of the doors, the squeaking of the wheel as you spin it, the kind of electric buzz when somebody hits the button and the prop kind of falls and shows you the right price. Like all of these sounds that you don't hear, you realize this is like a big carnival. These are like a bunch of carnival games. So they're rigged up the same way. It's a bunch of plywood and lights and paint. And, on TV, it looks magical. But when you're there, you hear like all the creaking and bumping, and it's all made of wood and glitter. Yeah, but it's still incredible.
Yeah, it's a very poetic way of putting it all. Really, it's quite nice. Getting another side to game shows that I didn't really think about before.
Man, this was a dream. I've been on a few, but this one in particular was the realization of a dream. I had always wanted to be on this show, and so I just unbelievable.
Did this lead to anything else then? So you said you run a game show. Say again what you did. Sorry, you edit a game show website, was it?
Yes, so I am the news editor and historian for a website called buzzerblog.com. So we are the number one game show website on the internet. So we report on all kinds of things happening in the world of game shows, unscripted entertainment, and the fact that I've been on The Price is Right plus a few others, I think, helps my credibility there a little bit. And just the fact that I've been watching game shows for my entire life, I've been not just watching but studying. I feel like I've learned so much from this type of TV, for better or for worse. It's really, I think they have shaped my personality, they've shaped my work ethic, my character, um, and I have a great time writing for them and editing for them.
Funnily enough, Buzzerblog was mentioned in an interview I did earlier today. Someone dropped the name of it and said it was really good.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you.
Yeah, it's the second time I've heard that today. Interesting.
That's excellent.
So did this lead? When did you start on Buzzerblog? Then what led to you wanting to make this step a little bit further from just fan to actually really getting involved?
Well, it's funny, once you get on a game show, it's almost like the X-Men. This like underground network of mutants rises up from the ground, and all of a sudden you're introduced to all these people who, this guy's been on Jeopardy, this guy's been on Wheel of Fortune, this guy uh, has been on this show. And so you get to know a lot of fellow game show contestants, and one of them, his name was Corey Anatato, one of my best friends to this day. And he founded Buzzerblog years and years and years ago, probably back in like 2004, 2005. And he and a couple of other people really grew it out of nothing and turned it into this incredible, incredible resource for people who liked game shows. And so I became friends with him, and we were online friends. And fast forward, 10 years later, I'm the best man at his wedding, and that's how close we are. He's my best friend, and it's really because of that game show connection that we even realized each other existed. Well, they have a reputation. Game shows have a reputation of being sort of filler, fluff, cack programming, but
Mm.
there are people who really, really enjoy it. I mean, because where else on TV do you get to experience that kind of entertainment? I mean, it's pure fun. It's positive vibes. It's unique music. It's challenging your mind, and it's exciting. There aren't, other than maybe sports for some people, which I've never been a sports fan, but there is no other type of programming like it on TV. I mean, game shows will always work because that will always be fun for people to watch.
What happened to the sofa, by the way? Did it get a lot of use or?
It got used to the point where it broke in half, actually. We were
Oh,
moving to a new apartment, and as we were moving it, it snapped in half. But
oh,
I kept one of the cushions, and my father made me a backpack for my first year of college. And so my backpack for my first year was made out of the sofa I won on The Price is Right.
oh, that's really
And I
good.
used it was great. It was great. And I used it for about a month and a half until I got the call to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but that's a completely different story.
A story for another day, maybe.
Absolutely.
So, just thinking back about your Price is Right experience, was there anything else we've missed that uh, maybe I hadn't given you the question to answer? Any funny or strange situations or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I mentioned the experience of walking into the studio, and I should probably expound on the significance of that.
Hmm.
This was Studio 33 at CBS Television City. And this studio in particular was home to a lot of different game shows over the years. So I think that when I was experiencing what I was experiencing when I first went in there and laid on the floor and did all that, it wasn't just the fact that I was on the set of The Price is Right, but I was in this hall where all of these people that I had grown up and idolized performed. It was like laying on the floor of Abbey Road Studios. Like the things that went on in this room, you can feel the energy in there. And I imagine it's a different experience now because the show is much more modernized. They've replaced a lot of the set pieces and a lot of the on-air cast and crew and things. So, but being there was like being dropped into it was like walking into the TV. That's the best way I can describe it. I heard Jerry Seinfeld once talking about being on The Tonight Show, and he said that the experience is like opening up the TV and walking inside. It looks just the way you would imagine it to look. albeit a lot smaller, but that was the experience that I had. It was just like falling into the TV. I've never experienced, of all the experiences I've had on game shows, I've never gone through anything like my time on The Price is Right.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with me. It's
Oh, of course. I have
incredible.
one more quick story about this, if you don't mind.
Have as many long stories as you like. No, let's keep
All right.
going.
So this was the day before showtime. I was in line and there were about 1,000 people behind me.
Yeah.
Now, as they were doing these shows, they were holding auditions for the new host of The Price is Right.
Yeah.
So during the day, these were unscheduled auditions. What they would do is they would get a live audience into the studio and they would conduct an episode of the show, not for air. They would record it, but this wasn't for air. And they would try out all these different celebrities who were interested in the job. And none of the prizes these contestants won were real. They didn't take home any of the prizes, but if they won, they would get paid a certain amount of money off camera, So at one point, the producer of The Price is Right came out to the line and said, "We have an opportunity for a select number of people in this line. If you give up your place in line and go into the studio to help us with one of these auditions, we are prepared to pay you a maximum of $25,000.
Wow.
Meaning that they're going to go through the show, and if you win your big showcase at the end, you don't win the prizes, but we'll give you a check for $25,000.
Wow.
So all of us in the first 100 or so people in line, we all were suddenly confronted with this decision. Do we take the money or do we hold our spot? And I think a few people relented and went in there, but I'm proud to say that I was one of the people who turned down the chance of $25,000 cash
Yeah.
to stay in my spot in line and win a sofa. And I still have a lot of souvenirs. So they gave me the cue card with my name on it that they held up when I first got called down. So I have that here. And then somewhere I have the name tag that I wore on the show. And it's completely beat up because I showed it to everybody once I got back home. But I'm still in possession of all those things. And I was happy enough to meet Bob Barker again in New York City about a year later. He had written an autobiography and he was holding a book signing. And I was true to my form, first in line for that as well. and he didn't remember who I was, but I had a chance to tell him just how much that experience meant to me. So that was definitely worth it as well.
That's really nice. In the UK, we don't really have anything like that. We have shows that we watch like on a daily basis, but there's nothing that has this kind of deep history behind it the same way that you guys have over there.
No, I don't think so. I feel like the UK has a different type of history when it comes to game shows. I mean, your guys' longest running one, I think, is something like Countdown, right?
Yeah, that was 1982, I think that was.
Yeah, that's been out for like 40 years at this point. And I guess there's a certain type of person who has that goal of getting on that show. I actually, years ago, for my for Christmas during my second year together with the woman who's now my wife, for Christmas she got me one of the teapots they give away as a prize on Countdown. So I had one of those for about 3 years, and then it fell down the stairs while we were moving to another apartment, and it just completely smashed. But maybe one day.
Yeah. Countdown's another one I'm right interested in. It's probably the longest one, as you say, and the Countdown teapot is something really interests me. How did she get it? Was it eBay or something like that?
She would never tell me how she got it, but she got it. I have no clue.
That sounds dodgy.
It does. That's it. You're right. Yeah, maybe I don't want to know how she got it. I don't know, but it's something I never, and that's the theme of a lot of these experiences, or things I never thought I would see in person. You grow up watching these shows and seeing these people, seeing the sets, playing the game from home, but nothing prepares you for that experience you have when you're there. Because it's almost impossible to focus on the game itself. Like, you're there to play a game and win, but there's so much going on around you, and it's so emotional that it's hard to be your full self, and that energy just takes over. I have so many people that ask me, like, is it fake? Is the energy fake? Do they tell you to jump up and down and scream and cry and all that? No, they don't. That naturally happens, and it's like a vacuum. That type of energy doesn't happen anywhere else.
have you got anything you'd like to promote or talk about that you do outside?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started a podcast about a year ago while we were in the height of lockdown, and the show is called Stranger Than Christian. And every episode, I talk to a complete stranger for the first time. It's a completely unrehearsed, unscripted conversation, and we get to a lot of deep places. Me and my guest, these conversations happen. Excuse me, these conversations happen in a very real and organic way. And as a result, I've met people from literally all over the world, every continent. And it's been such a rewarding experience for me to make the show. And a lot of people seem to really enjoy listening to it as well. So, Stranger Than Christian, that's available. New episodes every Saturday on all the major streaming services. StrangerThanChristian.com is my website. And then patreon.com/StrangerThanChristian. I promote that in case anybody wants to support me on this journey, but it's been a lot of fun.
Lovely. So how do you find these strangers then?
Well, a year ago, I actually put out, I made a Google Doc and I posted it on all the podcasting subreddits. And my strategy was that if anybody was interested, they would have a good microphone, so it would sound good. So so I put out the call and I put a link to this Google Doc, and I said, if anybody wants to talk to me for as long as they want about whatever they want, let me know. I will listen to you and I will talk with you and we will have a conversation. And that was the pitch for the podcast. I mean, it's very different from what I knew to be a podcast. It's very vulnerable. It's very real. It gets very harrowing. It gets very harrowing sometimes. And so, yeah, people just started responding. A year later, I have hundreds of people emailing me to be on the show, again, from dozens of different countries. And it's just been incredible. I've been able to meet from my closet, from my studio that I built in my closet during the pandemic. I've been able to meet so many people that I would never have any inkling of their existence otherwise. And it's just been so much fun.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I really like the premise. It's just, as you say, it's something so different. It's when I did go and I listened, as I said to you earlier, I listened to the Natalie episode, and I was looking through some of the others, and I didn't understand what the link between people was. But obviously, there is no link, is it? It is literally just strangers speaking. Which
I mean, the one thing that they all have in common is that I've never met them before. And, I had this idea. I said, because I listened to podcasts and a lot of them felt very canned and very self-aware. And I had this idea. I said, what if I just start a podcast? What if I just turn on my microphone and the first word of every episode is hello? And then we just go from there. And that's, and the show is what that has turned into.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you. I'll put a link in the description, and please do check it out. The episode I listened to was really interesting, and I just really like the premise, and I will genuinely listen to some more of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah,
so,
please do.
Right. So thank you very much for coming to speak to me today, Christian. This has been amazing.
Hey, it is my pleasure. I had such a wonderful time talking to you. Again, this is something that I don't get to talk about very often, but when I do, all the memories come back. So by talking to you, you just made my week.
Oh, thank you. You've made mine too. It's been great. We'll have to do this again sometime.
I am down. Absolutely. Yes.
And I'll check
please.
Buzzer Blog out as well after this.
Sure.
And, have a look. Right. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See you later.
Right. Bye-bye.